a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, Rachel Varitimos joins us to talk all things astrology. We talk intuition, flow and surrender, the best and worst practices, as well as cyclical astrology. What's macro, what's big and going on that seems to keep popping back up, and what to keep your eyes out for. This is a fascinating conversation, guys. All the ways, of course, to find her located down in the show description. Now, if you want to catch the afterthought as well as all the other bonus content that we put out and support your favorite show at the same time, all that can be found in the links below. Thank you guys in advance for your support and your kind words and just overall awesomeness. But for now, let's get to this incredibly cool conversation with Rachel Varitimos. Rachel Varitimos, welcome. It is so cool to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to go ahead and let the audience know up top that your first episode on the show, as well as all the other ways to find you, which you do have a myriad of awesome offers and links for us to check out. They are going to be found down in the show description. Video version of this actually as well, located down in the show description. That's for our audio-only audience. And if you guys want to check the Patreon down there, that is the best way to support your show. We got live hangouts going on. We have the afterthoughts, which you and I are going to go balls deep in this one for this episode. So join us for that, guys. Great way to support your show. But for now, Rachel Varitimos, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing awesome. Things are moving and grooving. Weird times, man. Weird times. Time to take social media break for sure, you know?
Yeah, I feel like the social media world is going to change a lot or grow and expand a lot over the next year, especially with Jupiter and Gemini.
There you go. And that's what we're talking about. Astrology. You have some fascinating things. It's going to be into the astrology and you little collection that we have over there on Patreon. Absolutely free. Go check it out, guys. And we have a lot to talk about. But for the audience that may not have caught your first episode or maybe just joining us, do you mind just introducing yourself in your own words there?
Yeah, my name is Rachel Varitimos. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, and I empower people to really reach like the highest expression of themselves and their birth chart using astrology and their birth chart. And I use astrology, I believe, differently than a lot of astrologers. I don't believe in hope and pray astrology where you just look at a horoscope and are like, okay, this is going to happen in my life. Can't wait to see it happen. I actually believe astrology is a roadmap for us to, I call it take life by the balls, but it doesn't have to be that aggressive. Take life by the balls so we can actually use the energetic currents to our advantage, just like we would look at a weather report and we'd know, oh, do I want to go on a hike today or not? So I love empowering people in that way. I'm really big into growing through community. And yeah. That's it.
Outstanding. That's it. That's a ton. And of course, your boo and my spirit animal, Ryan Sprague, is wonderful. And you two as a couple are just so damn powerful. So it's just really cool to see you two kids just out there kicking ass. So thanks for what you're doing, just on a bigger scale.
Thank you.
So astrology, you came on the first time and we just had an amazing conversation. Since then, a lot has changed in not only the world, but you personally, professionally, things we grow, we evolve. Where do you find yourself now with the things that you have been studying and looking into?
So where I found myself is last time we talked, I wasn't an astrologer, and I actually became an astrologer through following my astrology. And actually over the last 3 or 4 years, some of the biggest shifts and transformations I've had in my life is solely due to following the astrology. And so because I've been following the astrology and using it to make giant leaps in my life, so I'll use it as an excuse to take a big risk or as an excuse to place my attention and intention into a certain area of healing. I've found that astrology can not only heal you, but fast track your healing if you're willing to lean like 110% into it. So, for example, in my solar return for the last year, I'm really big into solar returns. I'm like always reading my solar return and other people's solar returns. So for my solar return last year, one thing I was healing was my inner child and having more fun. And that was always something I struggled with over my life. I have Saturn in the 5th house, which basically makes you struggle with your inner child and accessing joy and fun, but you end up becoming the best at it. Any Saturn placement you have, you end up becoming the best at over your lifetime, even if you feel blocked in it earlier in life. So I was healing my joy, my inner child, things I did for fun, because previously I always took everything I did for fun so freaking seriously. Like I would make everything I did for fun into a business or like into something that would be meaningful and practical. And so I was hosting retreats. I hosted like 6 retreats in the last 3 years, all because of astrology. I hosted my first retreat because of the astrology, which we can get into that story after. But so what happened was by my 6th retreat, I stopped feeling that same level of joy and fun I was feeling hosting retreats. But I had everyone telling me I had to keep hosting retreats because I was on my 6th one and like retreats are becoming bigger and you know, I finally have credibility. So you got to keep hosting them. All these business people were telling me you got to keep hosting them. But at my last one, I just didn't feel fun anymore. And I'm a big believer in following your desires, following what energetically feels right. And because I knew I was healing my inner child and what I did for fun, I knew I had to just not host another retreat after my last one in September. So before I hosted that last one on the Pisces blue moon, I strategically announced to all of Instagram and like my whole community that this was going to be my last retreat. And I strategically announced it on the Pisces blue moon because blue moon is in Pisces, we're releasing something out to the world. We're letting it go. But also Pisces rules my 6th house of day-to-day work. And so I was like, okay, on the Pisces blue moon, I'm going to time it. I'm going to tell the world I'm releasing this area of my work and I'm not going to do it anymore for the foreseeable future until it feels right again. I didn't know what I was going to do after that. Retreats were my main money maker. So how was I going to continue to make money in my business? Who knew? But I trusted the astrology and I knew that I was meant to heal my ability to feel fun and joy. So I host that retreat. It's over and now I'm free. And because I told myself I was only going to follow the fun now, I thought to myself, well, what could I do that's fun, but also makes me a little bit of side cash? And I was really into astrology. I've been studying astrology for years, but I thought, well, what if I just allow myself to study astrology from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed? Because I'm an obsessive person and I do shit like that. And so I thought, well, what would allow me to do that, but still bring in like a little bit of income so I could just pay my rent and like keep my savings where they are. So I start lifting. So I'm like, okay, I can lift. I can listen to astrology all day long. So for those, I don't know, 3 or 4 months from September to December, I'm just lifting and just learning astrology from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. And I remember 2 months in, I had this thought, this is really fun, but did I just make myself a Lyft driver? And am I going to be a Lyft driver forever? And did I fuck up? Because like I had this whole business and you know, people told me I should have kept going. What if I lost momentum? But I was like, no, Rachel, you said you're going to keep following the fun. This is still fun. So keep learning astrology. So another month and a half later, like 3.5 months into me doing this, I can only see the world through the lens of astrology. I think it's like if you get immersed in a foreign country and you're learning another language, you end up just like being able to speak the language. That happened to me with astrology. I'd already been studying it for a long time, but now I could only see it everywhere. And so I was talking to everyone about astrology because it was the only thing I could see and the only thing I knew how to talk about because it was the only thing going into my brain and I was immersing myself in. And eventually I had people saying to me, wow, that helped me so much. Wow, now I've had a breakthrough in my life because you told me that. And like, Rachel, you should be an astrologer. Like, you're basically an astrologer. And I thought, no, like, I can't be an astrologer. I'm just following my fun. And then I had this like whole realization after we went to our friend Aaron and Selena's house in Texas. You've met them. We were staying at their house and I was talking to them about astrology all week. And by the end of that week, I got so much affirmation for how I talked about astrology and how it's different that I decided to announce to the world in December I was an astrologer. In that first month, I made like $6,000 and I didn't have to lift anymore. It literally was like my business like picked back up right again. And ever since then, I've just feel like my inner child's out and I just literally feel like everything in my life is fun. And so that's just one example of how I've used astrology, but now I'm teaching other people how to use astrology in that way. So I've gotten one-on-one clients since December, and one of my clients is like left her job and is becoming a poker player. And like, it's just cool to see it work in other people's lives as well, that it literally is a map. It's a map that can hold your hand as you step into the unknown, because the unknown's freaking scary. Like, like you could back out, all those things.
I heard this wonderful thing. I want to hear what you have to say, but I heard this wonderful thing about the unknown, and it's that you don't have a fear of the unknown. You have a fear of leaving the known. And what's fascinating about this is when you put it in that perspective, you alchemize, you empower. You're like, oh, hang on, well, I can get over that, right? Because the unknown, the reasoning was that the unknown is something unknown. You don't have something to compare it to. You need to know what something is to compare it to something. So you don't actually have a fear of that. What you have a fear of is abandoning the known that you're so proud of, attached to, and believe in so much, right? That's what's fascinating about this. And so, yeah, it's just alchemy, dude.
That's such a great perspective to think about it. I've never thought about it that way.
I read it. I read it in, oh, shit. I'll figure out where I read it and remind. I'll send you the book or something. Yeah, it was in some book I was reading. I was just like, that is the perspective to have on this shit. It just stuck out to me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it makes me even think about like right now in the astrology that we're in with the Uranus-Mars conjunction. You've probably heard about that's happening yesterday, and how we had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in April, which was kind of breaking us free in terms of our values in the monetary system for the next 14 years. It's creating like a new cycle of abundance and how we have values in our money. And how it's in Taurus, and that sign does not want to change. Like, it's super stubborn, like it doesn't want to. So we have to have like crazy events like that Trump shooting to like shake things up, which to me, every Uranus conjunction is an activation of that. And it is crazy how like we won't leave the known unless something crazy happens. But when you do leave the known on your own accord, magic happens. Like...
This is the whole reason I think lizard turds exist in the first place. This is what demons have told priests that exorcise demons. They've told him, look, we don't like our job. We hate our job, actually, because you guys are the way you are. We have to motivate you, and this is the way that you're motivated. Otherwise, you just don't move. You nailed it with this. This is kind of how I think this, the dual energy, not bad, just different, right? The motivating force. Yeah.
Yes. So I believe astrology could be like the motivating force for people. Like that could create the magic. That's why I called my podcast Astrology Magic Podcast, because it gives you a reason to hop into that unknown.
Yeah. Re-enchant the world with magic. I love that. Mm-hmm. That's a Josh Cutchin quote. I do know that one.
Josh Cushing. I haven't heard of him.
Oh, he is so awesome. Check this out. He wrote this book. Oh, he wrote it. He's written a bunch of books, but this one, Where the Footprints In.
That cover art.
I know. Yeah, his buddy Tim Renner did the cover, and they co-wrote it, but it's two. So this is actually
it's like
one.
A child's book.
Dude, it's insane. It's awesome. It's 6x9.
Oh, it's a thick book.
Yeah. Well, not horrible, and double space. It's got beautiful. Dude, it's awesome. Anyway, Josh Cutchin.
What's it
Amazing.
about?
And I want to say that quote's in this book. Oh my God, Where the Footprints In. This is about Bigfoot and how he just like footprints will be out in the snow and then they just yeet out of nowhere as if he walked into a portal or whatever. He also talks about ancillary phenomena and how a lot of the Bigfoot reported sightings are actually what we call Class B sightings, meaning it had the tendencies or symptoms of what people talk about when they're experiencing something they call Bigfoot and then see a Bigfoot, but no Bigfoot was ever seen. Which also, that list of things also absolutely mirrors with the poltergeist effect with some of the alien encounters. So really it kind of puts the phenomena into more of a broader scope, right? Because he talks about it too, and a lot of people do, that if it happens in the woods, it's Bigfoot. If it happens in the air, it's aliens. If it happens in a haunted house, it's a ghost, right? But what if it's not? What if it's all the same damn thing? right? And then he talks about the conical head shape in hats and witches and how that also relates to Bigfoots being reported with conical head shapes. Could be the same damn thing, just a witch, right? All of it.
Whoa.
I know. I love this guy. He's a buddy too. Yeah. I'll get you guys
There's
connected.
so much magic in this world that we just can't even comprehend. Like, did you guys see any Bigfoots, by the way, on your Bigfoot excursion?
We did not. No.
Okay, no. Well,
Josh, a big dude. So I saw his feet. He was a big guy. But no, other than that, they were just pictures. And outside the Bigfoot Museum, they had a massive sculpture. So technically we saw Bigfoot. But did we see a hominid running around in the woods? No. Other than us, no.
We just went hiking this past weekend and Ryan was seeing all these snap trees and he's like, that could have been Bigfoot because they snap trees.
Something snaps tree. I love it. And this is the point, though. And I think, Josh nails it with this. And that quote is in that book, that it's re-enchanting the world with magic. Astrology does this as well. When you start looking at the sky clock above you, this physical thing that you can watch, you don't have to take anybody else's idea about it. Get you a telescope and watch shit. Learn it and watch it. You can track things. Now, if you figure out what it correlates to and how it impacts your life personally, that's where the magic is. These broad horoscopes that you get in the newspapers and stuff. I heard Derek Lamping, Holy Trinity 369, amazing dude. Go check his content out. He was talking about that horoscopes were really more of a medical chart for people back in the day. They use it not to tell the future, but to see where they were medically. And that ties into this whole damn tissue salts. Oh my God, have you heard about this? Your tissue salts and your zodiac? Bro,
no, but I'm in a medical astrology course, so I wonder if I'll start to learn about that.
You absolutely will. We'll pull up a chart in the afterthoughts. I'll go over it over there. I don't want to rain on your parade on this, but we will talk about it in the afterthoughts. It's fascinating. Fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, medical astrology has been really fascinating to learn because I've learned a lot about diseases that people just can't figure out or health conditions that, we blame it on Lyme and we blame it on this. And it's just like people can't figure things out. And in medical astrology, they found that Neptune is the planet associated with that. And I don't know, that just fascinates me because if we think about it, it really coincides with how Neptune is our mind, but it's our unconscious mind, how it's connected to everything. And it just goes to show how our subconscious can impact our health, our thinking can impact our health.
Yes, which is what probably the perception management circus going on around you called politics or education or society or anything else. That is a circus on purpose. Circus on Purpose is a cool name for a band. What do you think?
That is a really cool name for a band. I think you should start it for sure.
We've got a band actually that we're going to do called Blurred Dicks, but but we're going to change our name every single time and play in very small venues so that every single time we play, we'll be covering the band's name before us, right? So it's always a cover band, essentially, even if when we write our own music. But we'll play in small venues randomly with no patterns and then change our name every time. Now, what this will do is it will encourage people to go see local music in small venues. And now you're going to see a boom in local music and the ability for musicians to be heard by many others just for people to come see if it's your band that's playing that night. But they don't catch you because it's in Cincinnati at some random bar that you did play at once, right? But then they show up and they end up finding 5 bands that they absolutely love that they wouldn't have heard before had they not have gone out to see if you were one of these named bands, right?
I love that idea. So Blurred Dicks, is that because you're kind of
that's
tricking
fun.
People into being, it's just fun. Okay.
It's just fun. Yeah. And we'll have our first albums Hidden in Plain Sight, and we're going to have a rooster with that blurred out area right on his cochlea, for no reason. Oh, nice.
Yeah. On the, is a cochlea lingam? Is that another word for that? What's a cochlea?
That's their butthole / vagina / everything. Yeah, it kind of all happens in that one area. So we're just going to blur it out, right? Blurred dicks. But it's also a rooster, so it's kind of a play on that word as well.
Wow, I can't wait to see this imagery.
Yeah, and then we're going to change it. What was the band name we just came up with? Do I need to go back and listen to this again? I'll go back and listen to it. Don't worry about it. This is the beauty of this. Yeah, I was going to write it down, and then we just kept talking about things. So anyway, yeah, that's my band idea that we're doing. Yeah, we already have a bunch of cool members.
Are you a singer? Do you play instruments?
Yeah, what John Lennon said it best. They asked him about what he felt about being some guitarist in one of the biggest bands ever, and he said, well, I'm not a guitarist, I'm an artist. If you give me a tuba, I'll give you something out of it. And so, yeah, I play a myriad of shit. I'm self-taught, don't read a lick of music, but I don't need to. The other thing, Josh Cutchin, first call tuba player, by the way, in Atlanta. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Circles back. all circles back, Rachel.
Yeah, I'm very impressed that you don't know how to play instruments, but you play them still. I usually do that with the handpan because the handpan you can't get wrong. You know the handpan?
Well, yeah, but it's rhythm, it's feel, it's tone. You got your soul that you're putting in it. So yeah, I mean, the notes are there, but one could say that about piano, right? They're there. You can just push them in the right order, you know, essentially, if you want to be reductive about it. But there's soul that goes into it. And I know that you feel it when you're playing. Do you get lost in it? Like the world just fucking melts away?
Oh, yeah. Like the heart goes like, whoa. Yeah.
That's why we do it. Yeah. For nobody else. Yeah. That right there. Awesome. Astrology and intuition. Hit me with it.
Okay. I truly believe that I encourage that the whole world should understand astrology, just like we all understand English, because in my experience, the more you learn astrology and start to follow it and then use it to place your attention and intention in your life, you know, like we knew this Mars-Uranus conjunction was happening, something happens in the real world, we can make that connection. We're like, oh, that's the energy. I see it in real life. Like, connection, you know, and in a way that then strengthens your intuition, because then you're also paying attention to how things feel in your own life. Like, oh, this energy is going on in the sky. This is what this energy is described to feel like. How do you feel? And so in my experience, the more you learn astrology and then like chew on it, when you understand like an aspect's going on in the sky and you ask yourself, well, how am I feeling in my life right now? How does that relate to this aspect? It allows you to realize that you're way more connected to the cosmic energies than you realize, because oftentimes you're like, wow, how did it know I'm feeling that way? And it's not that the astrology is magic, it's that you're in tune, like you're intuitive. And so I actually think it's a really great way for you to almost like bounce off of something to understand what your intuition is and trust it. And I've actually found the more you do that, the more you understand astrology, check in with how you're feeling, it opens up your psychic senses to where you're like way more psychic and then able to tune into different things without even knowing the astrology.
You know, it's interesting. I'm gonna give you one to this because I'm with you on that. I'm smelling what you're stepping in here. It's not, honestly, I don't think it's valuable yet, but I'm being shown sort of as the Mandela effect, I think offers us that our universe is actually malleable, or that is proof that you are moving through it, kind of a thing. This aspect happens as well. Now, Mary and I have been going through astrology. She's in Ksenia's second course, crushing it. Like we talk about it quite a bit. There's some amazing new data points that I've wanted to add to not only you when your doctors. If they don't ask you your birth chart when you go see that doctor, fucking bail. That is not where you want to be. And we're going to talk about that in the afterthought a little bit. But also this idea that it's so tailored and so damn personal to you that whenever you really start to look at this, like you said, your intuition will dial in, because then it's not this macro thing where it's like, oh, that doesn't apply to me, so all of it's bullshit. Like the one that you read in the newspaper or something, right? Or the readings that they do on TikTok that are these broad readings. They're not meant for you. They're meant for the collective, as they say, right? But when you start getting into your shit and learning about the relationship between everything, that's when it gets really interesting. And this is where I think it's gaslit the most, is so that you don't do that. So you don't apply it to yourself and think that there's value there. And the whole thing with this is I'll be feeling a certain way or whatever. Mary and I will talk about what's going on in the sky. She'll sort of feel this as well. I have started to schedule around new moons because that's my introspective time. I'm a new moon baby. Had I not have gotten as interested in astrology, I wouldn't have been as mindful, but I've always known that around the new moon every year, I call it my time, or every month I call it my time of the month. That's my man's,
I love that.
What do I call it? Menstruation. Yeah. Moonstration is what it is. It's my new moonstration time of the month. And it's where but the reason is because I'm a new moon baby. I was born on a new moon. So that's an introspective time period. So not only is that going to occur for me every month, but it's going to occur deeper because I'm going deep on this thing. And what it really is I thought I was getting depressed and antisocial. And the whole thing about that is that the skill set switched. It wasn't that I was like being an asshole for no reason. It was that my skill set of being altruistic and convivial and outgoing switches to an introspective thing. And so it turns those sort of filters off. And so I'm not a dickhead or anything. It just takes a lot to be kind in those moments, right? It takes an extra effort. But knowing that about myself, I started scheduling around it. You know, we don't do shows on new moons, honestly, because of that. I just know me, and it's been powerful.
I love that so much. Do you look into your lunar return as well? Because every month you have a lunar return chart
We
based
have
on.
we have started to note what
Okay.
sign it's in, and even the next journal that's coming out that's on the drawing board right now. It includes a bigger section for your moon, and it's for that reason. So you could see not only what the moon is doing, but what sign it's in, so that you can start to correspond that as well, or just pay attention
Yeah.
to it, observe all of that.
You probably just had your lunar return the end of last week when the moon was in Libra, because it returned to the exact degree
That's
that your
right,
moon was
and
at.
it actually
Yeah.
wasn't a bad new moon for me. And Mary pointed that out. She goes, "Oh, well, it's your moon sign, so it makes sense." Just like
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. I'm like, but
Yeah.
I would have liked
Yeah.
to, but I could have scheduled a show, right? So those are the kind of things. So where now it's not a whitewash of all new moons. It's just pay attention to the houses, right? It's so interesting. It's way more interesting than politics. I'll tell you that.
It's so fun. And then when you understand it, you can be helpful to other people. So, like, even I remember I was at my friend Kim's house in the beginning of June, and I have an aspect in my birth chart that I know very well. And so when it shows up in a transit for someone else, I know that feeling. I'm like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so it's this specific aspect I'm talking about is very obsessive, like overthinking, like study and like grasp onto control and go to like, I call it like go to the bottom of the ocean studying with control type energy. It's
But
kind of like a neurotic.
Ryan brags on you so much. The way you learn things is fast. That should be studied. Ryan and I have talked about doing a study on you, the way you study, because of how quickly you're able to not only absorb but retain, and the energy and focus you put in it. Like he was talking about this when you were doing your, I think it was your trust. You were going through this one part of the sovereignty, and he said you got everything, you got the classes, you sat down, and from dawn to dusk, and really you stayed up for hours and more than you should have slept. You just consume information, but that's in your chart to do that.
It is, but it's also could go in the negative way where it's like I'm
Sure.
downward spiraling, like researching, obsessing over a person, which I used to use astrology in a toxic way like that. And maybe we can talk about that. Like where I'd be like, oh, well, this bad thing's going to happen in my life. Like, let me look at all the horoscopes. That horoscope is like confirming that bad thing's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like
You
I
would
used to use it
confirmation
in
bias. Yeah.
yeah, I used to use it in that way. So, I think every strength is also has a double-edged sword of a weakness. So
Fucking A.
it's something
Yeah.
that I also love astrology for, because it's like, oh, that's my strength, but it's also kind of my weakness, but it's okay because it's my strength. Like, so anyways, I know this energy very, very well. And also thank you for the kind words. And so when I was with my friend Kim, she was like, Rachel, like, I'm feeling a certain way. Like, can you tell me what's going on in my sky? And so I remember I looked at her sky and I was like, oh, I was like, I can't imagine you're feeling this way right now. We just had like a really great day, but are you having like really obsessive, like wanting to grasp onto control type thoughts? Like, overthinking? Like, it doesn't seem like you are, because I felt like I was telling her this thing and there's no way she's feeling that. We just spent the whole day together. And she's like, that's exactly how I'm feeling. And in that moment, I was just like, wow, it's just insane that you could be with someone and not really think that they're feeling that way. But then they ask you to look at their chart and you see this aspects that you know very well and know what it feels like, and you tell them, and then they're like, that's exactly how I'm feeling. I'm just like, that's magic to me, you know? And then it helps you understand other people. Like me and Ryan have healed so many fights because I understand what's going on in the astrology. Maybe you and Mary have too. Like,
Well, we don't. Yeah. I'll say that we've gotten to a greater level of communication, which we've had, but it got to a greater level of communication. But I do not disagree at all that it makes sense. There are things that just make sense when you start to look at the astrology. It's like, oh, it makes you more empathetic. It's sort of like they say, the saying, travel is the abolishment of bigotry. I think that astrology is the abolishment of being an unempathetic piece of shit to everybody because you don't know what they're going through based on, your own expectation of that everybody should be in a box. It really shows you not only diversity, but also that there is sort of a, pattern. There's sort of a template here in a sense, but in very unique ways. But it's fascinating. It's really interesting. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And then it also helps people feel like they can surrender to what they're feeling a little bit
it gives them
more.
permission. You're right. And not to judge themselves. So it does give you a map for these emotions. They are going to come, but also it allows you the sort of heads up to take a deep breath when the wave hits, so that you're not caught off guard and you're spitting out water. You just say, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then it's also like a blueprint too, right? Because if I know you and your Pluto transits, you're like, fuck the Pluto transit.
Oh, we've
So
talked about the blueprint of astrology, and maybe it is set up that way for that, right?
I
To
do
hit you at
believe
points
it.
of vulnerability. Yeah.
I do. Well, that aspect I was talking about, I have my sun exactly opposite Pluto in my chart. So I've lived with Pluto my whole life. It's basically part of my sun. And so one thing that I've learned about like every single planet and every single aspect is there's a high vibration and a low vibration. And I might have told you about this with Pluto already, but I forget if me and you have talked about this before, but like one thing I've learned about Pluto is Pluto can be a real bitch in your life and like literally, take everything away from you and like you know, kill people in your life. Like it can like have really traumatic events because of Pluto. But the high vibe of Pluto is you're meant to like face death, face your biggest fears, face the biggest pain, and gain it power from it. So it can never hurt you again, And so, like, even understanding astrology in that way and understanding like the high vibe and low vibe of an aspect, even when I was just talking about before how I used to use my gift of obsessive studying and retaining information for bad, like I would use it to affirm bad things in my life. And if I didn't understand that that energy could bring me to the bad or could bring me to the power, I wouldn't really ever know that I could flip it to the power.
Yes. Yes. It's empowering in that you're aware. This is the light we're talking about shining. This is you taking that flashlight and kicking it up a notch, George Norrie would whore this flashlight out to you on Coast to Coast AM. It is so good. It shines so bright. And when you see this, that's when you do start to recognize an evil in your life you were probably unaware of before. I'll just say that that's how I experienced it. But it is this sort of knock you out, yank you to the side. It pulls your astral body out and then shakes it and faces it towards you from a different angle. And when you see yourself from that vantage point, it's horrific. Like you want to burn it all to the ground. It's horrible. But again, this is when Mary actually got on her, I've got to get into Ksenia's class. She started researching this based on my shit, my
She got
fucking
empowered.
time.
It empowered both of
Totally.
you, it sounds like.
I feel so much better because now I'm able to share this. It has been a massive change for me. Massive. But it needed to happen. Absolutely. It sucked dick, but it needed to happen for sure.
Yeah, Pluto usually sucks dick. So whenever I talk about Pluto, I'm like, I feel like I'm talking about him from my high horse where it came out the other side. And then I'm going to face one of his transits again and be like, oh, yeah. Like,
oh, it's humbling. It is humbling.
Yeah.
I'm not ever going to say I'm out of it, honestly, because it takes that into innocence. It's your loss of innocence. That's what it is. It took that and just it's gone. But and Jennifer, Chris Matthews' wife, the one I just married in Colorado, she said it best when I was up there because I was still kind of going through this shit. Because again, I would never claim that I'm out of it. I don't have the balls yet. But she said that what this time is that it's an absolute death of who I was, right? I'm absolutely no longer who I was, but I'm not yet who I'm going to be. And so it's this middle chrysalis phase. And that's sort of what Pluto gives you, is this time to not only reflect, but to slowly and painfully reflect, because it's such a slow moving planet. It sits there with you and it's like a haint. It's like this, demon that sits on you that you have sleep paralysis. You can't move. Your only job is to feel all of that and survive it. Honestly, that's your job too.
yeah. And how many people are willing to do that? And I think also being aware that it's there can make it a little bit like, all right, well, this is so that I can experience the power that's on the other side. I totally agree with you. I have a Pluto story where I had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy at 26 years old because I worked for my dad. He had a commodity trading pool with millions of dollars in it. And I just wrote emails for him, but he put me on the LLC because he wanted me to work with him forever. And my Pluto aspect in my chart basically guarantees I'd probably have a bankruptcy at one point in my life. Like it's just, so when I had the bankruptcy, I was like, of course, like there it is.
Off the list.
But the way I got it was one of the guys in my dad's pool ended up losing $1.2 million because he was coming in and having my dad make different trades from everyone else. And anyways, he lost that money and then a couple years later came back and decided to sue both my dad and me for $1.2 million. So that's why I had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy to protect myself at 26, because he wouldn't take me off the lawsuit because he just wanted max pain for my dads that are lawyers, because I guess there's just people out there like that. Pluto people, Pluto. And so this is like a Pluto story. And I thought at that time my life was going to be fucking over. I was like, I'm 26. I have no credit. How would I ever have a house? Like everything got wiped away for me. But the thing is that like when you have to sit with that shit, that you either have to owe $1.2 million at 26 or file Chapter 7 bankruptcy and then you have nothing, it's really painful to sit with. But what that did was it motivated me to do all the financial law research that I had. Yes. And now I'm so empowered in my finances because I understand financial law. Like it's why I went to town. And to me, that's part, like, I don't always love that. Like pain can be a great motivator, but I actually believe you can turn your pain into your power, which then becomes your pleasure.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. That's alchemy right there. That's what it's all about. But astrology is definitely a roadmap for sort of this times of vulnerability is how I'll put it, because it's not times that you're going to be fucked over and all that. I feel that there are absolutely times that you are going to encounter something that's dark, okay? And in my case, it manifested as some interesting thoughts, but it's not going to beat you. You are absolutely strong enough. You will get through it. It is a motherfucker. And I'm here to talk to you about it if you guys, have any questions. And, Rachel can absolutely help you out with the links below. Definitely check these out, guys. She's got a variety of things down there. She can absolutely walk you through some of these. And why we have so many different types of astrology folks on the show is because it's very important for this variety. You all bring something fascinating to this message. There's no one I prefer over the other. Everyone is valuable in their own way. And I just love the impact that it's made on my life. So it's been so fascinating for me. And then again, when you think about it as energetic times of opportunity for you, that's an energetic time also for an opportunity for, if you want to put that there's something possibly out there like an archon, that's when they're going to tag you, because they pay attention to these energies for damn sure. You can tell because everything's here is inversed. So when it's gaslit, even though all sitting presidents have had astrologers and billionaires, not millionaires, use them, then, the inverse of that would be an energetic field all around you that operates that way and knows exactly how to play you like an instrument at that time. But it's always for you because you're strong enough to get through it and you needed it anyway. The fuck around and find out method of this realm is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about astrology is there's limitless possibilities within any transit, within any aspect. So like you can literally go anywhere with it. Like it doesn't box you in. It allows you to create your own reality.
Absolutely. It sharpens your focus a little bit. It says, there's, out of all the things in your world that you manage in the plates that you're spinning constantly, maybe just spin this one a little bit more right now. Maybe just focus over here a little bit. Don't worry about those they're spinning. Take a look at this and take a deep breath while you do it. And it's a fascinating correlation between these time periods, because once you get in, like you said, your intuition will start feeling something. You'll ride this wave with it and you start paying attention. Mary and I talk about this all the time. What are your thoughts on the, go ahead, Anthony.
I wanted to know if you guys notice, like see people on the street and can like feel into what their zodiac energies are. If you guys do that, that's one of the ways I like to practice the intuition thing.
Lately, we'll have a conversation with somebody and then we'll walk off from it and I'll go, Gemini? And she'll go, yes. And I'm like, oh my God, cool. Or somebody will do, there's an Aries that was just in a moment, but also I thought they were more Scorpio because of the way that they were real cards to the chest as far as talking about themselves, revealing anything. So I was like, Scorpio? And they're like, Aries, but here's why. And it had to do with a couple of things. So it mirrored that Scorpio trait. I'm starting to learn a lot more about it. I mean, especially how it correlates to the realm itself. And we'll talk about this in the after thing as well. We'll bring up the pillars and how they correspond to astrology, the Masonic pillars, actually. Yes. So I would like to know what is flow and surrender with astrology is something that we've talked a lot about. With that, you can apply astrology to relationships. Now, flow and ease in relationships is not only, can be challenging in the world that we live in, but also by knowing now that you're more empathetic because we have astrology under our belt, we know that people are just kind of have different experiences with different things, different reactions to things like a peanut allergy. They may have a cancer allergy in their chart that means that they're just going to kind of lose their shit today, and that's okay. But knowing that, being more mindful of it is beneficial as shit. So your partners, astrology, how has that helped?
I'm a story person, so I have one story I can share. I have a couple of stories. I have a lot of stories, but we'll share this one story that I think is so beautiful and cool. So me and Ryan, as you know, we've been together 7 years. How long have you and Mary been together? You've been together for a while.
Anniversary is on the 25th of 10-year anniversary of marriage is on the 25th of July, but we've been together 14 years. Yeah.
Damn. So you've been together twice as long as me and Ryan. So
in linear time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like when you're together with someone for a long time, there's some arguments that tend to remain the same thing for a while until you eventually work through it. So we had this one blow up argument and we just had not been able to get through it in our years. And I remember that night we got so heated that we stormed off, and Ryan went to his office and like slammed his office door, and I went to my computer and I'm just like seeing red and I'm just like clicking on my computer. I think just to off gas energy. I don't think I'm looking at anything. Like I'm just like, okay, well, I'll look at the astrology because I have this thought. Well, what if I look at the astrology and maybe there's an opportunity for us? And so I looked at the sky. And Pluto was trying the moon. And we're at home, like this fight's happening at home, and the moon represents home, and Pluto is deep transformation and like psychological traumas and like facing your shadows. And with the trine to the moon, I'm like, oh, it makes sense we got into this heated fight, but like we could finish this and like actually come out the other side if we're willing to go to the depths of the pain that Pluto needs you to go to.
Yeah.
So I looked at that and took a deep breath and thought, okay, I'll walk back into his office and I'll just tell me everything. I'll just listen. Because that's the only way I know how to resolve things in the past is when I just shut up and don't allow my triggers to keep triggering. So I go in there and I just sit and I breathe and I'm like, just tell me everything. I'm taking advantage of this opportunity we have. I didn't tell him that part, but I thought that in my head. So I'm listening to him and he's like this and that. And like, I'm getting triggered and I'm just like, all right, Rachel, breathe. And then eventually he gets to this point where he starts talking about his dad and then he starts bawling his eyes out. And it was this whole realization that this whole argument or his side was stemming from this deep pain related to the death of his father. And it actually had nothing to do with us, which I don't think any argument really ever has anything to do with each other. It really stems from a deeper pain that then repeats as a pattern in our lives, you know? So I guess in a way they do have something to do with each other, but he ends up crying and like really big crying. I've never seen this man cry this much, not on mushrooms, because usually he gets his biggest releases from his dad on mushrooms. And then I start crying because then I see him and I hear him. And then before you know it, we're hugging and we're just like sobbing. And it's like 45 minutes of crying. Like we need tissues. We're like covered in tears. And we've like just came into such deep love on the other side. And we never had that argument again. I don't even remember what the argument is anymore because we never had it again. But yeah, that's one example of how I've used astrology to go back in there and finish him. Like, well, I don't know what that Mortal Kombat, like,
yeah.
The fight.
I love that. That is so fucking beautiful. You nailed it. And the reason you don't remember the argument, what triggered it, was because it wasn't the point. It was the fuse. Nobody remembers the fuse of the firework. Nobody remembers what lighting that was like. They remember the firework, right? So that it's not about the thing. And Pat Mahan got me hip to that idea first year of the show, man. Right when I met that guy, it's never about the thing. It's always something bigger and deeper. And so Mary and I, knowing this and practicing this, it's not been easy. Okay, this is a simple, not easy shit. Because as you get more complex, so too does your interaction. One of the good things to do as well is, I mean, there's tons of tricks you can do, but really it comes down to that you can't love anybody else till you love yourself, which you both know dearly. And then it's not about how you feel about the other person. It's how they make you feel about yourself. And so, you know, in that moment, you had an opportunity just to let him be by himself, you know, and that may have been his preferred modus operandi. But the reason that you guys are going to stick it out is the one that walked in there, the one that turned around and walked in the room to finish that conversation. And I'll tell you this is beautiful. Mary hit me to this a long time ago. I'm a guy, so I'm a fixer. You don't have the same inclination on account of lack of the penis. But in the same way you empathize with it, you also want the pain relieved, right? But guys, when we hear a story about like a shitty day or gossip or something like that, we'll start offering solutions. That's the furthest thing from what you guys want, from what anybody wants whenever they're bitching, is they just want to bitch. They want to vent. And then we also understand that this is the only way out is through. So emotions felt have to off gas. Like you said, it came out with him, or he has a pressure cooker going until he goes into mushrooms, right? And then that's when he opens the valve and lets it out. But giving him freedom to do that with you in any moment, and especially the hard ones when it's needed the most. Mary the other day, God, this is just the other day, she said, I feel like I'm going to cry, but I don't want to. And I go, fuck that. We stopped I was walking by when she said it. I go, fuck that. We stopped everything. I stopped. I looked at this woman right in her face. I said, let's go. Let's cry. Come on. What is it about? Let's talk about it. Because this is I recognize it. It's a steam valve. And I'm not going to let that kettle whistle, right? Let's pull it off. Let's give it what it needs, which is to be released. But your understanding of that's massive. I mean, this is, again, that conscientiousness is what something like astrology offers you beyond empathy. Yeah, you can empathize, but being able to react and respond in a beautiful way based on that is where, again, this alchemy turned in. And that's beautiful. God, that's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's like that's why I think when you understand what's going on and things that are happening in your life, you can look for that opportunity, like you're saying. But I wanted to say another way that I've really used astrology to improve our relationships is through understanding Ryan's moon sign. He's a Virgo moon, Virgo rising. You Virgos really like to be of service, and it makes you feel good to be needed. And it actually probably feels really shitty if people deny your service over and over and over again, at least for a Virgo moon, because Virgo moon's like, it's almost a need. It's they want to, it's very fulfilling.
That's the love language. Yeah. Acts of service. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm the type of person who doesn't want anyone close to me to help me. And so majority of our relationship, I would shut that man down. I'd be like, don't you even tell me anything. Like, do not tell me, or I will not listen, or, I was just being stubborn. And so when I found out that he had a Virgo moon and that Virgo moons really do like to be of service, I decided one day to ask him to help me with something that I was fine with him helping me with. And he jumped up and down like a little boy on Christmas.
Yep.
He was like, oh my God, you really want me to help you? I've never thought you'd ever ask me. And he literally, his level of happiness made me feel so happy that now I like love asking him things. But yeah, it's even just understanding things like that.
It's huge, huge. I'll give you another one. When he asks for something and he's across the room, toss it to him. Don't throw it at him. Toss it to him so he has to catch it. So he gets to catch it, rather.
Why do Virgos like to catch things?
No, that's a guy thing, honestly. That's for all females to males. I can go ahead and speak for all males here that whenever you ask for something, go ahead and toss it to us. Right?
Okay, I'm gonna toss it to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes because we smoke bags here, we have the volcano. I'll like whip the bag to him. So instead, like underhand it, maybe.
Yeah.
Be a little gentler.
With a little love so we can catch it, right?
Yeah.
So what we want is just like a dog. We would just want to be thrown a ball so we can catch it and you be like, wow, that was a good catch. There's something satisfactory about it's proprioception, being played out here. It's skill level. It's can we match eyes with hands at moving object? And, there's all sort of math going on, but it's fun at its core. It's just a joyous thing to be tossed something and then to catch it. It's great.
I think that's really great advice, and I'm going to take that to the bank.
It's so simple, too. It's so silly that you're like, that couldn't possibly. And the next time, toss him the keys or something like that. You watch. He's going to love it.
Yeah.
Adorable. Okay, well, before we go into our afterthought here, I wanted to talk to you absolutely about the cyclical-based astrology, because this is something that's fascinating here. We're seeing on a big pace here what's going on in the world, and I'm not one to put my attention on the nonsense that the Matrix is feeding us. But what I am a fan of is empowering folks with why the Matrix is attempting to get your attention in that way. So if you would, there's an interesting transitory kind of time going on here. Talk to us about this and why we are aware that it's going to be fucking nonsense right now.
You might be talking about Pluto in Capricorn and us going back into our final push of Pluto in Capricorn, because right now Pluto is retrograde and it's going back from Aquarius into Capricorn. And also this full moon coming up this Sunday is like a final push because we have the full moon at 29 degrees of Capricorn, which is like this ending degree, which is like this final like crisis degree. And the moon is going to be right next to Pluto in Aquarius. So it's going to be like a very Plutonian. I feel like this Capricorn full moon is like the beginning of that final chaos and like it gets worse before it gets better type thing. So since 2008, Pluto has been in Capricorn, and all of astrology is about cycles. Anyone who just gives you like blank like dates, it doesn't really mean much unless you connect it to a cycle, you know, because that's how life is. Life is cycles. Like, you know, you think about like the cycle of having gone to college. Who was I in the beginning of college and the end of college? How did that experience change me? You know? So in 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn, which is so fascinating because that was the same time as the housing crisis. And so when Pluto entered Capricorn, its opposite sign is Cancer, which is housing and homes. So Pluto is like, I'm going to come and destroy all the home housing market, and basically like restructure this hierarchical banking system because things were outed. There was some truths shown around how, you know, the banking system was reacting with the housing system. And I don't know. I don't remember. I watched a movie about it back in the day. But basically, this last quarter of the year, I think it's from around August to November, Pluto will be going back at 29 degrees of Capricorn for its final push. And that's what happens every time Pluto leaves a sign is it's like, I'm digging my toes back into the last degree of the sign. Okay, I'm moving into the next sign. In the last degree of Pluto or any sign, it's the 29th degree. It's an anaretic degree. It's a crisis degree. It's like a degree of, this is my last lifetime in this energy. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to party hard. Like, let's go. Let's fucking go. Like, let's close this bitch out. Like, you know, like think about like you're in college and it's like the last hurrah and how big you'd go and how that can actually cause some like crisis. Like the last party that's that big can also be a mess. Like, you know, so we're going back into the final push of Capricorn, and Pluto in Capricorn. There was a lot of shadowy power struggle type stuff when it came to hierarchies. So think about our government is a hierarchy, like the World Health Organization, and like, you know, how there's these hierarchical governmental agencies. And then there's the financial system and how the banks are in a hierarchy and the banks rule the world. You know what I'm saying? And so all of these truths are being revealed related to the government. And because that's what Pluto does. Pluto will reveal the real raw truth of the deception and the shady shit and the power struggle. So as much as there is like power struggles and shady shit that goes on while Pluto's in a sign, it eventually reveals the truth. And usually that truth is sprinkled in throughout Pluto's transit there, but it more so comes when Pluto leaves a sign. So actually over the next 3 years, I would say, as Pluto really integrates into Aquarius, we're going to see a lot of the quote unquote gifts from Pluto being in Capricorn, a lot of the truths revealed, a lot of like hierarchical structures being like, you know, down to the wayside. And you know, like even the left and right is a hierarchical structure. Who's right and who's wrong? This is very much Pluto and Capricorn, like who's on top, who's right, who's wrong. Yeah. So, and then Pluto and Aquarius is about we're all one humanitarian. We're all in this together and each individual person's important. So I think we're even seeing that energy dismantling right now. Like I even do think that thing that just happened with Trump, I see a lot of people coming out being like, no matter what side you're on, we all want love and safety. Like people are like coming together in a weird way because of it, which is such a Uranus thing to shake up our values being in Taurus so that we come together in the most weird, fucked up way. But like, I don't even know if that's actually what's happening. That's just where my brain went with what I saw. But yeah, with Pluto going back into Capricorn those last few months of the year, it's this final push to dismantling those hierarchical structures and bringing out truths about the government, truths about the banking system. You know, we've even seen that with everyone learning all this financial law and the sovereignty stuff. I know me and you are both into the sovereignty stuff. We mentioned it a little bit on here, but people are realizing that we've actually been enslaved by the government, and that the laws that they're following the financial laws they're following are not actually in alignment with the Constitution, and they're not even following their own laws. They're not even following their own laws, but we're following their laws like slaves, basically. We're following their made up laws, and it's all being shown right now, And so what's really fascinating is we have all of this like destruction, like last hurrah energy when it comes to these hierarchical agencies before we move back into Pluto and Aquarius in December for good. Like it will actually stay there now, and we'll start seeing more truths come out. But what's fascinating is around May of 2025, all of these longer term generational planets like Neptune and Saturn and is Uranus might be too. I forget if Uranus is 2026, are moving into Aries. And Aries is the start of the zodiacal wheel. It is the beginning of like a new way of being. And with Aries being in all these generational planets, it's like the new generation, like the new start of the next cycle. So yeah, I think a lot's happening over the next few months to a year, maybe even over the next few years. It's going to be some rocky, interesting times where I feel like we're going to be going into a new banking system, especially since the United States had its Pluto return in the second house, which is their finances and banking back in 2022. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the energy I'm feeling is coming.
It absolutely does. And that's so important. I mean, very important, because it's a macro look at this. Now, if you want a micro look at it and see where you're going to be and see how it applies to you and how to better navigate it, like we've been talking about here this whole time, check the links down there, guys. Go check her out. She's got a free guide offer down there, as well as quite a few other things. You could book a reading with her. Her podcast is linked. Definitely check this out. So much value to be added here. And then to niche it down into you is where the true value comes in. And that's where it starts to get interesting. Finding out that you have this house and this planet in this house, and that always means that your dad died at this age. And it's crazy when you see shit like this. Like, it's a 100% every time. This wild kind of cycles, as you said, it's fascinating. But to get a leg up on it is the empowering part. Why it's important, why we talk about these, is so you can apply it to yourself. That's the whole point here. So if you'd like, before we go out here, tell us a little bit about what you're offering in the links below and what folks can expect when they connect with you.
Yeah. So I have my Cosmic Co-Creatrix membership down there. That's basically like, I'm going to teach you how to connect with a different part of your chart every single month. And then you get energy reports from me. And I'm basically like your on-call astrologer in this membership. And I'm giving you insights into how I'm seeing the energy, and then practical tips on how you can actually integrate it into your life. Plus, I'm teaching you how to read astrology in the most basic way, like the simplest, most basic way, so you can come up with your own horoscopes. Because I actually think those are the most empowering, when you can understand the very basics of astrology and, like, based on your rising sign, for example, understand, okay, this full moon is happening in Capricorn. What area of life does Capricorn rule for me? So I teach you how to use astrology in a really basic way to come up with your own meaning and interpretation. And that's how you start to connect it to your intuition. And every single month is a new zodiac theme, because we go with the energetic currents happening in the sky, so you can heal that part of your chart. And then my birth chart readings, I do deep dive birth chart readings into you, but we can also do solar return readings, which are my favorite. They're like your year ahead. And I believe when you follow your solar return and you see where your Chiron is, for example, in your solar return, that tells you what you're healing over the next year. The more I've paid attention to that, I tend to heal that area of my chart faster and faster throughout the year, because I'm like, oh, that's coming up. Like, this is like, I've healed it every other year. When I focused on it, I'm just going to focus on it earlier. So, yeah, I think solar returns are fucking awesome, because it's also going to tell you what you're letting go of, what you're moving towards, what your focus is on. And then I do one-on-one coaching, but you have to get a birth chart reading with me if you want to explore one-on-one coaching, because I like to just get to know you and your birth chart before we even talk about that. But then I'm really your on-call astrologer, where you get calls with me. And then my freebies. Okay, so I have my Activate Your Joy 7-day free challenge. to me, this is like one of the most valuable freebies you can ever get. It should be a course, but it's not. And I'm going to teach you how to activate your joy using your birth chart and get into alignment with fun and joy and pleasure and love in your life, but also how to reshape your identity to being a joyful person. We're in the North Node in Aries right now. We're all stepping into a new identity. And one of the big lessons I've learned from North Node in Aries is I've been realizing that a lot of us have been learning that identity work is the key to you manifesting what you want. And it's less about like, I want a house with 5 cars, and more about who am I as a person? How would I think about myself to have that house and 5 cars? Like, I'm a badass, I'm powerful, I'm a person who does this. And so this challenge is really to help you activate your identity while we have the North Node in Aries as a joyful person. It's like 7 days of like 20. I have everywhere from an 11-minute video to almost a 30-minute video. So they're very value packed. And then I have my free guide on how you can find your most prosperous career using your birth chart. And that's me. Oh, yeah, my podcast, the Astrology Magic Podcast. I have a lot.
I love it. You're doing so much, but it's all awesome and it all works well together. You know, this whole point of this is it's not either or, it's yes and, right? Once you get into that flow, I find that's when the yes and happens. It was either or until you figured out one part of it, and then it just yes ands the shit out of everything else. Even though it seems like a lot, it all works together beautifully. Well done. Okay, well, then before we go into the afterthought here, which we have a lot to talk about, we're going to talk about the tissue salts. I'm going to pull up a chart. We're going to talk all about this medical astrology that I've been finding out lately, see what you think about it, because I think it's absolutely fucking fascinating, and as well as how astrology ties into these alchemical texts that I've been looking at in the Boaz, Jason, the freaking capstone. It's absolutely fascinating because Cancer is always at the top. So it's very interesting, and we'll talk about this. So definitely check that, Rachel. Check the link in the show notes.
Check.
There you go. Thank you. Check the link down there, guys, to join us, support your favorite show. Come hang out for the hangouts, all that good stuff. But before we end it here, Rachel, please send us out on what gets you out of bed every morning.
Astrology. Like, I literally am an obsessive person. I literally wake up and I immediately check the charts and I make up my story. Actually, I would say what really gets me out of bed is I immediately wake up and I'm constantly envisioning my future and reminding myself how I'm already living it, and I just feel really good. That gets me out of bed.
Just want to take a moment here and thank Rachel Varitimos for joining us for that amazing conversation. All the ways, of course, to find her located down below, as well as the afterthought. We have a bit of an extra conversation here for you guys, as well as all the extra content that we put out can be found by supporting your favorite show over on Patreon. Links found in the description, as well as the free transcript and all that for this episode. You guys check that out as a thank you just from me, as well as thank you for your support in joining us in the expansion here. And also just want to take a moment here and thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you're doing. You guys are making massive waves in this community, collective, if we want to say consensus reality, maybe. You guys are doing great. So just keep moving forward, keep loving on yourself there, and just keep being nice to everybody you come across. Scoop up a piece of litter there, you see it on the ground, get the fuck out of the left-hand lane. Everybody is crushing it at that, and thank you, just sliding on over there. But above anything else in all of this, guys, really go out into this incredibly weird and strange and beautiful place and just be good to one another. Thank you so much for watching, listening, subscribing, sharing, and doing all that shit. But beyond anything else, thank you for being your true, authentic self. We will see you next time.